It seemed a typical Monday, not necessarily good, but not obviously malevolent either. Something to get through. One wished it was still Sunday. "Hello, Mr. L," our clerk, Jeremy Jenkins, murmured. He was holding a wrinkled copy of the police news, but his eyes were nearly shut. It is necessary to moderate the intake of sunlight between one's lashes after imbibing freely the night before. "Good morning, Jeremy," I said, a trifle too loudly. "Mr. B?" Our employer rumbled as he entered the chambers. Really, a grown man sulking. Or worse yet, brooding. One can sulk for an hour or so, but brooding can take days. If the grunt were directed toward me, I certainly wasn't going to give up married life on the grounds that it would inconvenience him. He sat down in his large stuffed green leather chair, and I in my more modest wooden one. We can't have these assistants comfortable, or they'll get themselves into all sorts of mischief. We sat, and the day began. A potential client entered minutes later with a request for our services. The man was looking for his eldest son, who had disappeared and was prone to melancholy. Mr. Barker promised he would look into the matter, but I sensed he was not enthusiastic. It was not the sort of case that attracted Barker's attention. Most of the cases he preferred to take had higher stakes or affected society as a whole, such as Irish bombings or the hunt for the Whitechapel killer. He left after 3/4 of an hour, and then we were alone. Unless we had a client, we had little to do, which I found irritating. Barker preferred to be working, up and about, but if need be, he could sit in his chair and think for hours. However, an assistant must not be seen as indolent, so I shuffled papers, looked over the accounts, which I had already done the week before, and pulled various books down from shelves in an effort to look industrious. I had just sat down with Kelly's directory in my hand, looking for the office of the young man we were to find, when there was a muffled explosion that rocked the building. It caused the chandelier above the visitor's chair to shudder. It was as loud as a thunderclap, and for a minute I lost my ability to hear. Barker was calling me, but I could only read his lips. No easy feat due to his heavy moustache. "Scotland Yard!" he shouted. Years before, our windows had been shattered by a bombing nearby at Scotland Yard, but so far our windows were still intact this time. I called back to him, "Downing Street!" Barker was standing now, and he put a cupped hand to his ear. Then his desk collapsed through the floor, taking the gov and his Persian carpet with it. The green leather chair was next, and the visitors' chairs, dropping into the cellar. Board by board, from the center of the chamber outward, the room began to come apart with a rending of wood that I could hear even with my damaged eardrums. Our entire chamber was disintegrating around and under me. The building which had been bombed was ours. Have I mentioned how much I despise Mondays?